Hey, how's it going?
Hi, can I say hi? I'm Roy.
Hi, Roy. I'm
Yes, so
Cheryl.
this is the first of these events I've come to, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm involved with the British Computer Society DevSecOps group. So we've got a meeting in a couple of weeks' time. If there's any way I could let people know about it, that would be nice. But you know, if it's going to be disruptive, that's okay as well. Yeah, if it's okay, please don't worry.
No, I can give you like 30 seconds to come up. Okay, I will do it. I will do a sponsor announcement. Thank you to the sponsors. So at the end of that, I'll let you come up.
If it's okay.
Of course. That'll be great.
It's all similar.
Yeah. I know when you're trying to kind of get some interest going in a meetup, it's helpful.
Lovely.
Okay, so nice to see you. Hi, come on in, sit down. We're going to kick off in 2 minutes. Good to see you.
Yeah.
All right, come in. We're going to kick off in just a minute. Come on, last people. Come in, sit down. We're just about to kick off. All right, excellent. Okay, welcome everybody to Cloud Native London. We are a strong, open, diverse developer community based around cloud native platform and technologies based in London. I am your host, Cheryl. I have been running this now for 8 years. Someone just reminded me earlier, so it's going well. I'm glad that people are still interested and still coming to these events. So thank you guys for coming, honestly. Tonight we've got 3 speakers for you. The first one is Eric, and he's going to talk to us about mastering Fluent Bit, the ultimate guide to integrating telemetry pipelines with OpenTelemetry. Our second speaker is going to be Ashish. He's going to tell us about the only top 3 Kubernetes security vulnerabilities that matter. Then we're going to take a 15-minute break, come back in here for 8 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock, Hasib is going to tell us about developer-friendly PaaS for CPU and GPU workloads across data center and edge environments. At 8:30, we're going to go downstairs and go to the Conductor Pub, which is just out the front door on the left. And feel free to stay and keep having drinks and keep chatting. Our sponsors for this evening are Do It. Do I have a representative from Do It here tonight? Who wants to do an announcement? Okay, in that case, I shall do it on their behalf. So, the only intent-aware FinOps platform that goes beyond cost optimization to drive reliability, performance, and security, turning endless good ideas into real implemented solutions at scale. So, thank you very much to Do It for sponsoring tonight's event. I have a request from Roy to just come up and tell you about another meetup briefly.
Okay, hi. I'm just being very cheeky because I'm running an event with the British Computer Society in 2 weeks' time. The topic is threat modeling in the cloud. So if you are interested in finding out a little bit about threat modeling, that would be great. It's easy to find us if you look up BCS DevSecOps Group on Google, and you can find us all of it. So thank you so much, Cheryl.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So we're going to do a bit of live polling now. Please grab your phones and scan this QR code. I'm going to ask you 2 questions about yourself and then 3 questions from our speakers. All right, everyone's got this QR code. Okay. Yeah. All right, first question. Is this your first time at Cloud Native London? So you should see yes and no options. So just press whichever one. Looks like the no's are shooting ahead. So 2/3 of people coming back. And yes, it's starting to edge up as well. We have some people joining us on YouTube and on Twitch tonight as well. So they might also be first timers. Okay, is yes going to make it to 50%? Maybe not. Okay. Oh, Lily, come on. Okay, no, maybe not tonight. Oh yeah, we made it. Sweet. Okay. Next question. Oh, okay. What is your job title? So your options are architect, application developer, backend developer, engineering manager, DevOps/platform engineer, security engineer, or anything else. So looks like people already got the hang of this now. DevOps and platform engineers are biggest cohort. A couple of security people as well, perhaps. Nice. All right, we're going to keep going. So, first question. Who uses a telemetry collection pipeline for observability? So, do you use Fluent Bit, OpenTelemetry, both, something else? Or what am I, a plumber? Let's see what these answers coming in thick and fast. So, oh, okay, Eric, looks like people think they are plumbers. Is this what you expect?
Yeah, that just means they're not using anything, right?
I guess. Is that what you expect 40% of people not to be using?
You never know, right? Usually I start the questions with what you just asked. And I think in the others of what your job title is, we might find that we have some people here that are SREs and things like that. So I'm not sure everybody's in the observability side. We'll find out when I start.
Okay, excellent. Next question. What is the easiest way to attack a Kubernetes deployment? Is it a container with root privilege? Is it a vulnerable internal application running on Kubernetes? Is it container escape? Or is it identity with service account or API credentials? I'm going to let people think about this for a minute. This is a little bit tough. I want to know the answer to this. Okay, looks like people are answering identity. Ashish, is that correct?
I mean, I don't think I should do my talk anymore because this is kind of what I was going to go with. But I mean, this is kind of what I was expecting, but there's a bit nuance to the cloud thing, but this is pretty much what I was expecting.
Excellent. Well, that means that's good because that means people will agree with your talk. Last one. What is a platform as a service? Is it a cloud computing model that provides a complete platform for developing, running, and managing applications? Is it application management layer that's focused on AI or ML? Is it a raised embankment outside a large property where guard dogs can rest? Okay, Haseeb, so Well, looks like some people think thinks it's an embankment. Yeah. Oh, okay. 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 We're going to have a talk about guard dogs and resting from her seat later, I think. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much for taking part in this live polling. Keep this open because we'll do Q&A with the speakers through this as well. Right. I need a selfie for social media, so everybody please stay put. Let's go. I need everybody to wave and smile and look really happy. Okay, like big wave, big smile. Oh, thanks. Thank you. I do need longer arms. I need to be tall though as well. That would really help. Okay, if you want to come and speak or sponsor us, go to cloudnativelund.com. We are booked up for speaking slots until January next year, so plan ahead. You can always book a slot and then, decide the title later. Or come support our community, come help pay for the pizza and the drinks, and come and share your own events, just like Roy. All right, that is it from me. So I would now like to welcome Eric to the stage, who's going to be our first speaker for this evening. So round of applause, please, for Eric.
Cheers.
Okay. Should this thing work? There we go. All right. From the people that were voting for plumbers, that was 40% of you, I think it was. Raise your hand. Hold them up. You're lying. There's only 3. Come on. All right. What we're going to take a look at here has to do with cloud native observability. So cloud native, we're at the right meetup. Who here is doing observability? About half of you, because the 40% talking about plumbers, I would assume maybe are not touching this too much. So it might be a little bit out of your purview. When we look at cloud native observability tooling, you have 2 different organizations that handle open source software. The Linux Foundation, familiar with that? A lot of app dev stuff, mostly, right? And Linux operating systems, that idea. You have the CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Do we know that? That's where you'll find the observability stuff. And there's a lot of stuff been going on in the past here with OpenTelemetry, really accelerating the standardization of the query languages, or not query languages, but the protocols for communicating across collecting your telemetry data. That's why you see the OTL collector, OTL for OpenTelemetry. And you have Fluent Bit. And I saw 1 person, or maybe 2, that are actually using Fluent Bit. But both of these things are out there on the edge, collecting your data, right? So we're going to take a look at this here and see what the choice should be, could be, would be, or even needs to be, right? Do I need to pick one or the other? How many people here have OpenTelemetry running in their organization or in their development environment or stuff like that, right? About half. That's not bad. How many Fluent Bit? 3, 4, 5, right? Which one's easier? That's a loaded question. The idea is you really don't have to choose. And I don't know if you've read much of the research and stuff going on, but on average, they're saying the most recent stuff I've seen, there's an average of 10 observability tools in an organization of any kind of size. To create an observability solution, you have to pull all these different bits and pieces together. And definitely if you're doing open source, you're going to find that best of breed is here, 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 or different departments in your organization are going to make decisions to use OpenTelemetry. Another one might choose Fluent Bit. Next thing you know, you have 2, right? So it's not uncommon to run into both of them in one organization. That has nothing to do with whether you should pick one or the other. If we zoom in a little bit here, Fluent Bit started. It's kind of an interesting project. This is the only one that's ever done this before, as far as I know. Within the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, you have sandbox level when you first get submitted, you have incubation, and then you have graduated. OTEL has been around a while, right? It's not graduated yet. Fluent Bit's graduated. Fluent Bit comes from the Fluent umbrella project, which is graduated. That was Fluent D. Ever heard of that? Back in the old days when we didn't have cloud native, we just had virtual machines and racks and well-known environments and monolithic applications. We had monitoring tools. Fluent D was an log parsing, turning it into machine-readable languages so we could do things with it, right? That was where it started. That went all the way to graduated. They decided to take all their learnings when cloud native and containers and those kind of environments came along. They tried to rewrite and come up with a better version for using in containers for scaling, Kubernetes, all that kind of stuff. That is the Fluent Bit project. Very lightweight, written in C, started out logs first, now can also do metrics, traces, collects everything out on the edge. Really huge when you want to do really high throughput, really lightweight something out there. Think like 2 megabytes in a container. That's not much, right? It's extremely efficient, extremely simple. OTEL started basically from a rewrite or the next version of OpenMetrics. Remember that? Anybody here heard of that one? That was one of the projects along the way that got up, I think, to incubation status. And then they decided to retire that and they moved on with this one. So this one had to start at the bottom sandbox and make the walk through. That's why you don't find this one in graduated yet. It feels like it's really close, right? Feels like it should be any time now. So keep paying attention when we have these KubeCon events in North America and in Europe. You're going to hear an announcement pretty soon. Started off with traces first, has also migrated on so that they can now also do logs and metrics and all that. But think about this. This is a collector on the edge. There is no back end. It is just collecting, providing the instrumentation libraries. One of the things you'll find is written in Go. That's very optimized for the cloud, of course. You'll also see that there's a registry of collector components. The thing about how fast they've been moving over these last couple of years and creating things like the OpenTelemetry protocol, OTLP, to communicate, all of this kind of stuff means that a lot of people have contributed to these registries, and there hasn't really been a lot of policing or guaranteeing that that's high quality stuff. So when you go online and see some of the discussions around integrated OpenTelemetry into my org, there's a lot of wrestling with these integrations, because people start out and architects start making analysis and they look at the list, say, oh yeah, this one, and this one, I need this collector component, no problem. This integrates with this integrates with that in my org. Turns out that nobody's been maintaining that since they contributed it. So you made the choice to go down the road, then you start going down the road and find out you're using a lot of old stuff. That's a little painful, right? So that's been a bit of the bumps in the road for the OpenTelemetry guys. The thing is, they work pretty much seamlessly together. They both, along the way, made the choice very early to make sure that they can integrate with either one. So you can have them running side by side and you can pass data from one to the other in either direction. I'm going to show you some of that live in a minute. Fluent Bit turns everything into an OpenTelemetry envelope, which basically puts it into the OTLP protocol. That gives you a scope, it gives you a resource, and it gives you a payload. Fluent Bit uses something called a forwarder. It has a plugin on the output side that passes it off into the OTEL collector. The other way around, same way, it ingests it from the OTLP. I do have a demo for that. The problem is I cannot fit logs, metrics, and traces into the 25, 30-minute talks we get. So I'll point you to where the project is and you can go take a look at it after you see me do it. And you can try to, I put a script in there that I'm about to finish off that'll step you through each one of these things that I'm going to do. And you can do that yourself locally at home. Some of the use cases, I already mentioned them a little bit. Fluent Bit collecting at the edge, resource constraint, very lightweight, very easy to do. They have Helm charts that drop it straight into a Kubernetes cluster, and it collects everything in the cluster automatically with one instance, channeling all your logs through this and giving you the ability, which you will see me do, to add, change things, remove things. Sensitive data can be at the edge removed so that you're not sending it through your cloud data pipelines and paying a lot of money for this, right? OTEL does a lot of centralized aggregation and a lot of advanced processing. But really, it's up to you, whatever your organization is using, whatever you're running into, there's nothing holding you back. That's kind of the whole gist of this thing. Let's zoom in on the telemetry pipeline from Fluent Bit. Pretty straightforward. I always kind of make a joke like, I can't believe we didn't think of writing this myself. It's not that easy, but when you see how many steps are involved here, there's 5 simple steps. You have an input plugin, which means we can take input from anywhere. They love to say input anywhere, output anywhere. The first thing you do is you parse it. This means we turn it into machine readable code. JSON is probably the best one we remember or understand because there's all kinds of toolings now. Anybody here Java developer? Anybody been doing it for more than 15 years? So you remember hanging out at coffee machines when the machines were slow enough? I do, where it took 20 minutes to build my Java code, right? And so we'd be talking often about what the exception messages should be. Because down on the 3rd floor in the bank that I worked at, that's where the developers were, or the operations guys and girls were looking at it. And they would see this big pile of exceptions and somewhere would be my line. If I come up with the right English phrase, they're not going to call me and make me come down there and look at this whole stack. What a bunch of crap, right? So machines parse this much better. AI parses this much better. That's why we want to go into a JSON kind of thing and let them loose on your logs. Then you have filtering. This is fantastic, right? Very simple ways to filter this. You can use grep. Is that the right English term? G-R-E-P? Yeah? Okay. I live in the Netherlands, so sometimes I say that wrong and people look at me funny. You can use things like grep. There's a plugin for that. You can also use things like regular expressions. So any way you want to try to filter these messages coming in, you can search on key value pairs because it's JSON, right? So if I find user ID, remove it. You're going to see that one. Then we want to be able to buffer it. Out of the box, buffers in memory. Not realistic, right? You get buffer overflow and all kinds of stuff that goes wrong and you start losing messages. I have a workshop backing this talk that I'm going to share with you at the end. You'll be able to scan that. You're going to see 2 chapters in there about how to crash something. And then I'm going to show you how to use various things that are available to you to not do that and not lose messages anymore. It's a very cool one. And then routing based on what's in your message or where it came from or what the timestamp is, what region, whatever you want, you decide which output plugin to send it to. Maybe I want to send one to debug, one to this region, and one to the file storage, right? You're going to see that too. It's really straightforward. So let's take a look at what that looks like. And this is going to be a little bit silly because I have to kind of try to talk like this. So what we're looking at here is a configuration file for Fluent Bit. And can everybody see that? Is it big enough? Good. I'm going to walk over to this side for a little bit. You see at the top, it has a service section. That's basically some of the main configuration stuff. You're going to see hot reload right there. That's kind of important because I'm running this on source build. In the workshop, you can do source build or container versions. I just choose to do it on source because it's really nice for a demo to just give it a signal and it'll restart the thing every time I change the config. You'll see that happening. And then you have a pipeline. Pipeline looks a little bit like that picture, right? Pretty straightforward, not a very hard configuration file here. In the pipeline, we have inputs, filters, and outputs. I'm not doing anything with the buffering. I'm not doing anything with the routing here yet. What you see is a dummy plugin. Just to keep this super simple, I'm taking control of the log message that's being generated. You see there that it has a user ID. So I want to give an example of some secret information that I want to be able to remove before I send it across the cloud, before I send it anywhere. Remember, this is out there connected directly to whatever's on the edge, whatever, whether that's hardware, software, service, whatever it is. And then the output here, we're just sending it to standard out. And the first time I'm going to show you is just not configuring it at all. There's no parsing of the output. So you see here, I'm just starting the configuration file. I love that they have ASCII code. ASCII art is a dying thing. You see here the log entries coming out. It's being pumped out, right? So before I go further, the first thing I want to do is find out how I can pick it. 27937. So when you send a HUP signal, you see that it restarts the process in place, right? So now we can go play with it. First thing we want to do is format the JSON, right? kick it, watch the output change. So this is all fun and games. It gets real messy depending upon where you're ingesting it from. And note this little bit here at the front has to do with internal Fluent Bit information. That is your message, your log line, your log event. And now you see it all nicely tucked into JSON key value pairs. That's pretty handy. Now the next thing, let's go up here and look at the filters. First thing we want to do is we want to clean up that. We want to clean up that secret user ID, right? So we're going to use a modify filter. We're going to match it to every single log line that comes in. You could be selective. You could pick a key value pair or a grep, or you could do a regular expression here, whatever you want. And we're going to remove the user ID key. Just throw it away. Look close before it goes away. User ID gone. At the source, you've already dropped, I don't know how much data and how much money we just saved. And we definitely don't have a security breach, right? Right, security guy? Where's the security guy? Thumbs up. Now we can also enrich. And last week, guess where I was? Yeah. Here. So now we're going to enrich the data a little bit because we want to do some special things here. So I happened to have been at a tech meetup last week in Glasgow. We've now added data, so we can manipulate and tag things and do whatever we want with our log data, right? I'm going to go ahead and stop that and go back here. Okay. That's the first part. Now, you see the telemetry pipeline, you see some of the simple stuff you can do with it. There's a lot more. I'm just giving you a couple of things to look at. Now imagine we're going to do something with metrics, and we're going to bring Prometheus. Anybody know what Prometheus is? It's the CNCF de facto standard for the last, God knows how long, since 2016, I think, doing metrics. Very, very, very normal thing to use. We're going to take our telemetry pipeline, and we're going to start monitoring it. We're going to turn on metrics for the pipeline itself. We're going to expose an endpoint. I'm going to show you that first. And then we're going to start scraping it with Prometheus. And then I'm going to show you how you can also manipulate some of the metrics to add extra labels. And then in theory, you can build dashboards and all that good stuff and alerts around it. We're not going to go that far. Don't have enough time. Let's take a look at this. So this one is here. You see here that we have two messages. And we have standard out JSON. Very simple, right? Right now, you see nothing metrics at all. This is just doing its job, ingesting what's coming in and showing us what's going through there. Nothing crazy. I am going to get this sorted out. So we have a new process ID. I got to restart my machine so I get really low numbers again. Make sure that's ready. There you go. Now, first thing we're going to do is go back here. And we're going to turn on the metrics. So what you see here is Fluent Bit metrics are being turned on, pointed at a local host, and it's scraping every 5 seconds. So it's going to expose those metrics from the Fluent Bit instance every 5 seconds. I don't see any yet because I didn't do this. So now you see it's happily humming along. Ooh, it just dumped the metrics, right? So those are exposed on an endpoint. That doesn't really do us a lot of good yet. We need to make sure that we add another output. So you remember how we used to have multiple outputs? Now what the routing is going to do, now you're seeing routing in action. We're going to get to the point where if it matches what's generated out of this, it's got a tag on it that he can detect. He's going to expose an endpoint that I can scrape with Prometheus. And we're going to add some labels to some of the metrics. So let's go over here and we'll start that up. Yeah. And then we're going to have a config file over here from Prometheus somewhere. Here. And all it's doing is scraping just that. I got rid of the standard stuff you normally find when you do that. Okay. So there we go. That's up. And we're going to have to go over here and escape out of, escape out of this, hide this thing because it's in my way. There. Shit. That's not the idea. How do I get out of that? There we go. Every time I do escape, it's going into the video console. Out of the way. All the meeting controls are showing up on my screen. Localhost, here we go. It's really zoomed in. It's a little crazy. So what you can see here is a Prometheus console, right? And you see the target health. This means that he's able to find it and scrape it, that up on the green on the other side. So he's finding the endpoint for the metrics that we got going. Now let's go query some stuff. And all you got to do is start doing Fluent. It's command line completion. So you immediately see that he has everything in his database. He's starting to do time series of these metrics. And if we look for uptime, I believe that's the one. Yeah. It doesn't really matter about what we're querying. You can draw, you can design all kinds of dashboards around this, but you can see Fluent Bit, Meetup, Glasgow. You can see those special labels that I put in are now being added to metrics. So you have full control over the metrics. You can also remove labels. You can do whatever you want with that stuff. Same idea. Everybody follow it? Great. All right. Let's go back here and get rid of that stuff. Stop that. Stop that. And now we're going to have some serious fun and games. So we've done regular. So up to now we've done regular metrics. Put an endpoint out here, scraped it, showed you it in the console, right? So you start doing diagrams and everything. Last thing we got to look at is how do we do this from Fluent Bit all the way over to an OpenTelemetry collector that happens to be somewhere in our org. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to start up the Fluent Bit. You're going to see the console output. So you can see the logs being generated. And then you're going to turn it into an OTel envelope. That means OTLP, right? OpenTelemetry Protocol. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then we're going to send it to a backend through the OTel collector. So we're going to start up an OTel collector. We're going to ingest it and see it coming out of the output there. And then while that's fun and games, normally you would send it to a backend. We're just going to send it to a file so I don't have to set up a backend for you. And we're going to show you it inside this temp output file. Okay, that's the plan. Everybody with me? Ready for this? All right. That's this one here. So as you can see, very simple output file. I'm just doing one line JSON, and then we got a bunch of stuff we're going to start doing with this. Let's kick this one off. Figure out who we are. 8, 4, 9. Okay, generating our log line. Not very exciting. We're used to that already, right? Now let's turn it into, and one thing that's new here is called a processor. So inside the thing, we're going to process this to turn it into an OpenTelemetry envelope. Still going to the same output, and that's it. Yeah. All I'm interested in is this output's going to change. Now you're seeing a resource and a scope. They're empty because I haven't done anything with them. But that is OTel, right? Resource scope and the message, basically your payload, right? Source scope. Now, if we want to see something interesting about that, let's add a resource. Oops, know what happened? See what's wrong? It cares about indentation. Let's try that again. There we go. Now, if you look really close, we have a resource, my new service. So now I'm injecting stuff into the OTel envelope, into the OTel protocol before it's even at the collector. I'm doing this all out at the edge before I put it into my backend systems, or my collectors headed towards my backend systems, existing collectors in my org. Let's go down here and do a scope modification. We're going to add pipeline and a version number after we get the indentation correct. That's kind of the problem using IADs, right? They always do the auto indentations and gets all smarty pants on me. All right, if we look close, what do we see? Pipeline and version. The version number is wrong. We need to fix that. It's version 4.0, right? Okay. Now, let's go down here. And we're going to expose it to the backend, give it another direction. Take a close look there. It looks a little weird. It's OpenTelemetry. I want to match everything. So I'm also sending it to my console output, and I'm going to send it to the OTel collector. And where's the OTel collector? I've got it on 4317. This is using HTTP. Normally it's 4318 for anybody that's an expert here. But on my machine, I happen to have something else running on that. So it's always given away. So I redirected it. The host, OTel host, is resolving to 0000 by default because it's empty. That has got to do with the workshop. When you do if you do a container install and are using containers, you're setting this, right? So then it becomes effective. So it just happens to work out. And you see I got a key there at the bottom that I'm adding in. And you're going to see something interesting happen. He's really upset about sending this to OTel. Why is that? We don't have an OTel collector running, right? So we're going to leave that like that on purpose. So we can go look over here and take a look at what our OTel collector looks like. And the configuration is really simple. I'm pointing it at the 4313 to listen. He's using the HTTP protocol. You recognize that? He's using debug, which is just console output. And I'm going to send everything to the debug, and I'm expecting OTLP. Straightforward, right? And as soon as I turn that thing on, he starts getting stuff. You see that? And over here, all those errors went away. Oh, I got it. Here. See all those errors about the collector? Now he's really happy. He's like, yep, sending them over there. He's receiving status 200. No problem. You look over here, it looks a little bit, oops. It looks a little bit ugly, but you can, if you look really close, you can see the same kind of data coming through. Seeing a scope, it's all divided out into the various things. You see the payload, success code, and all that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this to, I'm going to change the configuration on OTel now. Keep doing what I'm doing now. I'm not going to change the front end. I'm going to change the back end to send it to a file system also. So I'm basically going to modify the OTel configuration from the collector. And you see here, he's now added an exporter to a file path and to debug. So down there, he's going to the file and to debug. So we'll continue to see it just like we did. So I'm only going to restart the collector, but then we're going to go look at the file, and I'm going to be able to use some tooling to make the file look pretty so we can see what the output looks like. So we're going to kill this one. Try a different configuration. And then we're going to so this is a little bit sexier, right? A little bit easier to see what's going on, but I think it's still a little messy. Anybody know the tool JQ? All this does is make it look really nice and colorful. And so what you see inside of here, let's see if we can get it. Here's the start of a message. See at the top there, it says resource. And you see that one thing that we added. We see the scope with the two things we added. And we see our payload where we also added some stuff at the bottom here. If we go back here. Here. Let's add our last message. We're going to mess with the body now. And we're going to fix this. Not very nice to call you guys Glasgow, right? So we're going to just have to sig up it. Pipeline's all happy. What do we got going on here? What do you see right there? There's the data field we just added. So now you've added something to the scope, you've added something to the resource section, you can also add it to the actual payload. All manipulating out on the edge. And that almost brings us to the end. So it wouldn't be any fun if I just stood up here and did this all the time and you just stare at it. Wouldn't you like to go home and do it yourself and learn? If you know nothing about this at all, just start at the beginning. There's 8 labs in this thing. It starts from 0 to building your own pipelines, to integrating with OpenTelemetry, to dealing with back pressure and flooding your whole pipeline so it breaks. Really straightforward, probably take you 2 to 4 hours. Not that big of a deal. It's not a very complex process as you've seen, right? You'll get your head around it really quick. Everybody got that? I'm constantly updating it. I'm working on putting a metrics thing inside there, or metrics traces. We have that in the demo environment also. There might be a few other things you're interested in, Prometheus or whatever, a bunch more free workshops you can go do. Also has OpenTelemetry in there, and we can go dive into the tracing up to your knees. And we also have Percy's. Anybody heard of Percy's? That's a fun one. Anybody going to DevOps UK this week? Okay. That's it. A couple minutes for questions in your app, if you'd like. Do I need to get out?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, have like 1 minute. So
1 minute. Ask them fast.
Please.
No questions? It can't be that good that there's no questions.
Maybe one quick question about the buffering. You said that this agent is quite lightweight and does lots of things with lower latency. So what are the buffering options that are not impacting the latency?
So there's the very first easiest way to do it is to use a file system. So put some kind of a file system behind it so that it first goes and stores them all in storage and then feeds the pipeline at the tempo it wants to process it. There's some really subtle things you do that the way it basically does is breaks up these messages into chunks, and you can manipulate chunk size, you can buffer sizes, there's some things you can play with, and you'll do that on your machine. And I do my best at the beginning to tweak it, and it's only in containers, because if it crashed your machine using the source build, it would pretty much kill the whole workshop, right? That's no fun. So what we want to have happen is kill the container. You can see it goes out of memory. And whatever it took on your machine to do that is like the starting point for the rest of the tweaks that you do. So you should be able to get a feel for what these different things affect. Yep.
All right. Thank you. Oh, we do have one question. Okay. Do you have the drive?
You still have the drive.
Do you still have the drive to work in IT?
So
or like chasing new shiny things?
I love chasing new shiny things. That's really funny. Okay, so my background, I've been in IT since I was probably 28. I was a little bit late to the game. I got a master's in IT and started in app dev, did that for a long time, always in open source, did 13 and a half years at Red Hat. Decided to do something else after the acquisition there. Ended up in observability, and it was a pretty scary jump because it's completely different from what I was doing up to that point, as you can imagine. But it's been super fun learning all this new stuff and finding out about CNCF. It's a completely different open source organization, works a wee bit different. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to what just happened with somebody trying to pull back a project and a logo and really interesting stuff. So it's really nice to see that there's organizations like this. And yeah, that gets me up in the morning. So things like this and teaching you guys what's new. And all I'm doing is sharing what I've learned along the way. So I've been doing this for about 3 years now. And everything you saw with the workshops and stuff is what I built and learned along the way. If I learn it, why can't you learn it? And we do that with publishing, with socializing on social media, with doing this kind of speaking things and the hands-on content.
Thank you. And we are now going to welcome to the stage our second speaker of the evening. So over to you. Round of applause, please, to welcome Ish.
Can Zoom link somewhere? Sweet. On the right screen. Cool. Okay. So I try and make it as interactive as possible. That's how I enjoy my sessions. So if anyone wants to not interact, this is your giving you a heads up right now. So actually, let me just go slideshow mode. So I do have a demo. Actually, how many? There was a couple of people who were security engineers. Was there people in security other than me, or am I the only person? Or one person on the corner? Oh, 2, 3 people. All right, kind of raising his hand, but not really sure. Okay, fair. So for the non-security people over here, this is basically a talk that was inspired by, at least I'll talk about my background, but essentially we had a bit of a thing in my security operations team where we would get 3 a.m. alerts for PagerDuty, and none of the teams knew what to do with Kubernetes. And most of the time it was because it was just a new technology. The same kind of transition that happened when we were moving in cloud, we kind of had to go through in Kubernetes as well. But this is kind of an amalgamation of what we discovered over time for what was some of the top 3 things that kept coming up again and again. And we kind of walked down the path of resolving it. So this is a bit of a story there, but that's essentially what inspired this talk. A bit about myself. I've been, even though I don't look that old, but I've been in cybersecurity for a little over 14 years. I was originally in Australia, and I've moved to London. I've been in London for the past couple of years now. If anyone cares about professional expertise, I guess I did a master's in cybersecurity, although I never used it, except for learning CIA, whatever that was. And for the past 3+ years, actually 6 years now, but I've been hosting cloud security podcasts. And we recently, because you cannot walk any office without talking about AI, we've also started AI cybersecurity podcast with my excellent co-host. He used to be the CISO for Robinhood back in the US. So him and I run this podcast called AI cybersecurity podcast as well. And we have an advisory board where we have CISOs and security leaders who are part of basically discussions like these, kind of like workshops, but it's primarily online, people from the US. I think some people are members of financial institutes on this very street as well. So I'll just give you a hint. Yeah, and outside of all of this, I enjoy coffee. And if you can't tell, I'm a bit of a men's fashion person. I do notice when people make an effort. I do make an effort myself as well. So that's kind of my non-professional thing. I do want to start off. There's a lot of hostility towards security people usually. So I wanted to say, I love developers. I know a lot of people are DevOps people here, platform engineers. I love you guys, but I'm not a Kubernetes expert. So if I do call out things which do not make sense, feel free to come up to me and let me know, because I'm here to learn as much as everyone else is. This is based on what I learned. I'm not a CNCF expert. I know the landscape when I see one, it scares me. But I took the effort of just walking forward and going, okay, this is something that we have to deal with on a day-to-day, especially with, I don't know how many organizations. Are there organizations working in AI, chatbots, AI agents? AI agents or chatbots? Chatbots. Okay, anyone else on AI agents? There's a couple of people here as well. Well, for the rest of the people who haven't, or kind of over there, for rest of the people who are going to join the bandwagon, hopefully a bit later, essentially this is, it's well known that most of the workloads these days in most organizations is container first, and Kubernetes is kind of like an essential part of it. What has happened over time, at least within security as well, we kind of went through this transition from, hey, we started obviously the good old on-premise data center world. That's where I came from. And we learned, transitioned over to cloud, and now we're transitioning over to Kubernetes and hopefully some AI whenever AI makes it to production. But at least for now, it's still in dev mode, so that's good for us. How many people know OWASP? Oh, quite a few people. Awesome. Great. For the few people who do not know what OWASP is, it's kind of like the CNCF, but for cybersecurity. It's the easiest to explain it. They have a lot of projects about what is important for cybersecurity people. It's called Open Web Application Security Project. They're very well known for every time you hear a cybersecurity person come to you and tell you, hey, I found a vulnerability, and they normally point you to OWASP top 10. That's kind of like, it's kind of become like the gospel for it. At the same time, like I guess previously we spoke about Fluent Bit and all the other projects that are there in CNCF. OWASP is like a similar resource. The reason I have this is because CNCF has also got something called Top 10 for Kubernetes, which was released in 2022. Now, for folks who kind of gave the vote, anything, well, you would see some of them were inspired by it, but you would notice there's a lot of focus on Kubernetes bare metal, if I can say that. A lot of them obviously do overlap with the cloud versions. And as someone who's primarily worked in, at least for the last 7+ years, primarily in cloud-based environments and now multi-cloud environments. There's a whole story behind multi-cloud, but I'm not going to go into it. But the point being, this is what we had to begin with when we were trying to work out what should security look like when we're looking at Kubernetes. And some of them make sense. Some of them are like, what am I looking at here? Like network segmentation. Everyone, I think, how many people use Cilium over here? Anyone uses Cilium? Oh, few people, awesome. Cilium supporters. Calico, anyone? Calico? Oh, one person. So I did not know these words. I only found them out as I started exploring this. I'm like, oh, there are these projects. And then I landed on the CNCF landscape page. But the more I dug into it, the more I identified a lot of these make sense in a on-premise or a self-hosted or a, hey, I manage everything inside Kubernetes version. There's a bit of an overlap with the cloud versions. Anyone who works in the cloud space of Kubernetes? Quite a few. Anyone who loves AWS Kubernetes? Awesome. Anyone who loves Azure Kubernetes? I'm just like, oh wow, okay. This is definitely an exception because I normally just walk away from a conversation. I'm like, I'm not talking about Azure anywhere. Google people, I imagine. Google Kubernetes. Oh, they see. Okay, perfect. So, I mean, I'm not gonna rant about Azure, but people who love Azure, I'm sure you have your reasons for loving Azure. I don't put that against you, but I personally have just shied away from it because I came from a Linux background, coming from an Azure background, just like, oh, what is this world? But the point being, so coming back to my story of when Kubernetes became like a norm in our organization and we landed on this particular page, none of this was translating to what was in Kubernetes. So we come up with few tools and try and talk to people and figure out, hey, what's going on? But the essential part was, whenever we bring this forward to a platform team, they're like, oh, this doesn't apply to us. I've already got this. Or I've got Calico going on. I've got Cilium going on. I'm like, we were in this like endless loop conversation. And this is not to say that's their fault, but it's more our fault for not knowing the basics of Kubernetes. So we kind of went through the journey, started understanding a bit more, specifically because we were cloud first. We didn't have anything on premise or data centers. So it kind of made sense to figure out what do we actually care about. And there's also a reason for me to start talking about this now, I think, because I feel like, at least in most organizations these days, for us particularly, we are transitioning onto more, hey, what does an AI workload look like? A lot of the cloud logs have been started shifting. It's usually, I'm sure it may be a common case, but most enterprise, it started off with cloud security people looking at your Kubernetes logs as well as your cloud logs. Now, over time, as AI workload has started moving forward into dev, test, and hey, we want to move forward with this, some of that log started coming over to security operation people as well. And that also meant for us, we have to quickly understand Kubernetes, but we also need to understand MCP and A2A and all of that. Anyone fan of MCP here? Kubernetes MCP? People know what MCP is? Oh, okay. Some people know. Okay, cool. You don't have to. If you don't know, you've been saved. Don't Google it later on. This is a whole world that's going to open up with your on your LinkedIn after. So just don't Google it. Essentially, we went on this journey of trying to build MCP servers on our side. Essentially, it's like think of it like a way to communicate with data sources, but with API calls. That's the simplest way to explain it. And we found that all this OWASP top 10 is great, but most people, or most of the incidents that we were triaging, people were just logging in. They're not trying to have a sophisticated attack. There was just, if you actually go back to any public example of Kubernetes-related attacks, you'll find there's only one, and that was a Tesla hack, and I think it happened in 2018. And again, remember, I love you guys. I don't hate anyone. I'm not complaining about it. The Tesla hack essentially was a Kubernetes API server on I believe it was an OpenShift, or at least a version which was left open on the internet with anonymous login enabled. So as people who know this Kubernetes world, that was the case. So that's how they walked away with all the data. So that was pretty well understood. Now, the funny thing, for people who have not worked in cloud-based, it may scare some people, at least scared me the first time I heard it. By default, when you deploy a Kubernetes cluster in AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, the API endpoint is by default on the internet. You kind of have to tell it that, hey, it should be only for our private IP. Now, fortunately, they did take the lessons from the Tesla hack, and there is anonymous login disabled by default. So you technically, even though it's on the internet, it's not available for people to just hit the API and take out all your, how many ports do I have, how many services, how many namespaces. They can't do that. So we were trying to get used to this, but what we found was a lot of the starting points for our conversation for incidents was coming from DevOps people and platform people. And obviously, we were trying to work with them, trying to figure out, hey, do we have any tools that we can use to figure this out ourselves? Turns out, a lot of the cloud security tools we have, and the different versions of it, after having spoken about this very topic for 6 years, I figured out that, depending on how much budget a company has and what kind of provider you go for, you get all kinds of cloud security tools. Some of them come with eBPF. Some of them don't even know what eBPF is. Some of them try and figure out, I think I know what a namespace is. Let me get back to you on that one. So it's a wild mix. So as a security person, you talk to them and you go, hey, I'm sure they know this because we couldn't be the only one. But we would always end up in this conversation for, we can find out your Kubernetes clusters, how many clusters you have, but you have no idea how many pods are there, how many namespaces, is there an application that's running on it? Is it critical? Is there a Calico or a Cilium running inside it? And it was, anyway, the whole world kind of opened up at that point in time where we kind of found ourselves in a bit of a hole where we weren't able to respond to incidents on time and waking up platform engineers at 3 a.m., which is not great. So hence the talk. Okay. Some of you would already know this, but it would be a refresh for people who know this, but maybe something new for people who have not seen this before. This is usually what a Kubernetes architecture looks like. It's my super sweet, simple diagram. I'm sure many people are familiar with this. I'm sure there's a lot more parts that go into it, but this is what I took was important for me, so that's what I made of it. This is what a shared responsibility model looks like in a cloud context. Now, this is specifically an AWS one, but similar for Azure as well as GCP. So essentially, this is what you get when you're in a cloud environment, which I learned only a couple of years ago that, hey, I don't have access to half the shit. But hey, who cares? At least we got to a point where we started figuring out, okay, this is what we care about, and things are called different. The nomenclature for worker node is a bit different depending on which cloud you're working on, whether it's in AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Now, there's a report that came out. Every year this report comes out from Verizon. It's a data breach investigation report. What they found, bless you, man, what they found is, on average, based on the analysis they did, it took almost 32 days before someone discovered a vulnerability. And if I go back to what I was saying earlier, that we would only find out about incidents when a DevOps person or platform engineer would tell you, depending on how often do you actually notice an alert, which is not related to your job, and you think you get that itchy feeling in your head, like, this doesn't seem right. How does it happen every 32 days? I'm sure it happens a lot longer than that. But this is the industry average at the moment. That according to them, people are actually slowing. This is actually 64 days last year or a couple of years ago. So this is an improvement. This is not bad. This is actually an improvement for where we are heading with this. Still have a lot of work to do, but this was kind of one of the conversations where, oh, maybe you should look into what are some of the top patterns you're finding then. Now, this is again an AWS example of what you would expect a AWS-based Kubernetes implementation to be. You have your worker node, control plane is primarily copied or at least managed by AWS. So you don't have to worry about that. It's primarily looking at pods, and people from the Azure world or GCP world, I think you'll find this very similar. This is a virtual machine version, so I've got my pods running on a virtual machine called EC2, and ECR is just a container registry. Unlike Azure and Google Cloud, there's a whole local IAM user concept, which is worthwhile calling out. But it's important because that's for the number one vulnerability that people should care about in a cloud context. Now, after doing cloud for almost, I don't know, like I think feels like a long time, in the cloud world, at least outside of Kubernetes as well, identity is still the number one reason why there is a compromise, a breach. All the stories you hear on the internet or the news is primarily driven by this. Funny short story. I started my career in identity. Absolutely hated it. I thought, who talks about login passwords the entire day and put MFA? And I left it as quickly as I can. Well, quickly was 2 years, but hey, at least in my world, it was quick enough. And landed in the cloud space. I was really happy with it. But turns out identity is cool again for both cloud, Kubernetes, as well as AI. Who would have thought? So, but it still is important because the nature of it is more than our username passwords. In the same report, the Verizon report, something that was called out was humans are still 60% of the times reason for why there's a human breach. And phishing's actually worthwhile because we're in an AI world. Phishing emails don't look the same anymore. It's not your odd, I don't know, Nigerian prince trying to send you 50 million pounds and say, send me money back, or a domain which is misrepresented. These days, thanks to AI, the phishing has evolved to be a lot more specific. I think called it spear phishing, where they know the person, the AI agent can actually do research on you online, what have you done in the past, have a proper conversation with you, and then send you an email. So you feel like you're applying for a job, but technically you're just talking to an AI agent. Like, so that's how sophisticated things have become, at least in some of the use cases that were called out. Which is why identity is probably like, so the number one reason that we found was either, so this is just a representation diagram, but essentially this is what I'm talking about. The number one reason was a compromised user. Now most enterprise have single sign-on. People know what single sign-on is? Awesome. All right, everyone knows single sign-on. Awesome. Now phishing, if you can imagine, you can access someone's Office 365, and because AWS, Azure, Google, they're all web portals that you can access from any website. If you don't have protection for a single sign-on from a specific URL or network protection, technically single sign-on becomes that, hey, I have access to, I think the most recent example, if people remember the Uber breach that happened, there was the whole thing was talking about how much data was lost. They had these two lines in there for Azure as well as AWS credentials were in the mix as well, which is conveniently no one spoke about. So technically they had production access, if you could think about like the severity of it. But everyone just focused on the fact that, hey, there was a data breach, millions of records were lost by Uber, but people forgot to, like that two lines over there, people didn't care. Oh, it's just like AWS Azure. I don't know what that is, but hey, who cares? So it was really fascinating for me that's how, I guess, unknown these things are, that you are like, hey, wait, someone just accessed your entire production environment. And that is not important. It's important. I mean, data is important, don't get me wrong, but still, I thought it was very interesting. Another one that happened was on a compromised laptop. Basically, I think this was not Uber, this was someone else. I think this was Okta, I think the Okta hack that happened, where essentially the developer was told that, hey, we are looking for you seem like the right fit for a particular job we have. They have full conversation. They send them a link to see the job description, and the job description installed some a keylogger, which logged the password. The person got access to the machine. Fortunately, this company had zero trust. Has anyone heard of zero trust? Awesome. But so one thing about zero trust is that you use VPN to log in. Now, conveniently, because the laptop he was using was a work laptop, the VPN password was saved as well. So that's what he used. So he was on the laptop, which was saved with the VPN information for the zero trust environment that you're supposed to access. And the person logged into the AWS account. Anyway, they took out a whole bunch of stuff from there as well. That was an interesting story. I think the difference there was the person, the developer, I believe, was from a third party, and Okta was able to pick them up on the other side that, hey, this looks like an unusual behavior for a person. But irrespective, it was called out that, hey, there was a compromised user on a work laptop. So there's multiple ways to see this, and it kind of, as you can tell, these days, identity is a lot more than username passwords, as one would imagine. Next one is an obvious one. I'm not going to talk more about, but essentially compromised secrets. GitHub is notorious for this. How many people have committed the secrets on a commit that they did not want to commit and then figure out, can I delete history? Yeah, like I've been there. I'm trying to figure out, how do I delete Git history? Doesn't work. So I've been there. So that's why I'm like, I don't want to talk too much about this. It's like brings painful memories. Brings me to the second one. The second most common reason we found why application or with Kubernetes were compromised was because the application running on the pod itself was vulnerable. This is a reminder for the OWASP top 10 that I was talking about. Now, usually, whether it's a feature update or whatever's gone into an environment, if your front door itself is, I guess, vulnerable, doesn't really matter what's on the Kubernetes. Doesn't really matter if your container has no root access, read-only access. All that just goes out of the window when the application itself is vulnerable. And there could be multitude reasons for this. Essentially, this is where we try and talk about the OWASP top 10. Oh, actually, I had a bit of a demo here as well, just to show you what it could look like. And serverless application, this is the one that I was going to show you as an example. Log4Shell in a pod is another one where you can have container escape. By the way, how many people knew container escape is possible in cloud as well? Did any of you know that? Oh, sweet. So basically, in a cloud context, what that would look like is that you're coming out from the pod into the host machine. And because you have a shared role with the pod, or your pod itself has a role that can access information on AWS. Not that sophisticated if you understand it, but kind of makes me sure if I can do this. Yes, okay. So if you can see that, this is probably the only part that I'm going to drive myself. Essentially, this is a load balancer that I've got a serverless function running in the background. All this does is, if I put in like google.com, if I can type in google.com, so it just does a ping. It just sends one packet. For people from networking would know, that's pretty straightforward. It's like an internal network testing app. But for people from the Linux world, if I do this, if I put oh, notice the list of files. This is like a public URL. So it's just like, oh, so if I do, I don't know, let's just do a cat etcd, etcd password maybe, if it comes up. Oh, at least that's good. Oh, did I thought that wrong? Sorry? There you go. So, I mean, this is just a wonderful application running inside a pod. I don't have to have container root or anything. I still can access the local files. Now, you can go a step further as well. I think if this particular serverless function doesn't have an IAM role, but I could just make a call to the AWS CLI, get the IAM role, and see what else can I explore. Maybe hopefully no shared roles anywhere. But you get the picture. Yeah.
Like AWS S3 LS.
Oh yeah. Do you want me to? Sorry, what do you want to do?
And with AWS S3 LS.
Oh,
AWS CLI.
AWS S3 LS. Oh yeah, actually AWS CLI is enabled. Oh no.
Yes, CLI is still installed.
Oh yeah. So print env. Is that it? Sorry. Oh, env. Sorry. There you go. Oh, there you go. This is a wonderful Java app. At least you find out that much. I think there was a Java expert before, someone who picked up their hands. Maybe they can figure this out. But this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Like, it doesn't need to be as complicated as like the top 10. The things you're finding are almost basic. You almost look at that and go, huh? Is this is what I'm fighting against? Which kind of brings me to the third one, which is kind of taking a leaf from probably the most common vulnerabilities as well, is misconfiguration. Now, misconfiguration is a very common thing among cloud, and we found this is to be a common thing among Kubernetes clusters as well. But the way it takes a shape is different. In this particular scenario, I think what a screenshot. Yeah. So in this particular scenario, it would be that my AWS cluster has been given access to the wrong user, or I have given access to an identity to a production Kubernetes cluster who should not be allowed production access. Like, so it's misconfigurations in that context. We found a lot more scenarios with this where, hey, we had a policy for no IAM users, but still there was an IAM user in AWS production environment. Like, how does that happen? So there were things like that, and people were add themselves to access entry. That's how you bake yourself a cluster admin for the cluster in AWS. I'm sure there are equivalent examples in Google Cloud as well. But essentially, that's the third common thing that we found. But if you kind of go back to the top 10, you'll notice some of these are there, but they're not called out the same. So there's misconfigured cluster is K09, but this cluster component rather than the cloud component. Insecure workload configuration, K01 is kind of the same as well. But you'll see there is kind of an overlap, but technically it's different depending on what cloud you're working with. So, okay. I did want to give a reminder again. I'm not the security guy with the scary slide giving you only bad news, right? There is a reason for it. Well, my hope is because a lot of times when a security incident happens, we go through this incident response process. We follow something called attack MITRE attack framework. Have you guys heard of this before? Oh, perfect. Couple security guys have. It's a fascinating one. Essentially, it's an open community information, collecting information about how do attackers normally attack different kind of resources. Whether it's your identity, whether it's your cloud. I think Microsoft made one for Kubernetes specifically. Selfishly, it works for Azure, but you can extend that to AWS and Google Cloud if you want. But this is basically a live document that is collectively prepared by the community to let everyone else know, hey, what are some of the common reasons why something gets compromised? And if you notice, both for identity and for cloud, which is the bit on the leftmost for both of them, which is the initial access, it's always driven by compromise, which is the same as your application, which is already vulnerable, accessible to the attacker. Second one is phishing, which is still somehow the most important thing out there. Trust relationship is third party. If you have third parties that access your cloud environments, whether it's for observability, sorry for the previous speaker, or whether it's monitoring, or could be for any multiple reasons. Like these days, you have SaaS applications going into your cloud environment as well. And some of them would prefer to have identities attached to them as well. So that was the Okta example that I was referring to. And valid account is I literally gave my username and password to someone. These haven't changed in the last 6 years, by the way. There's no root container thing or read only. There was none of that, which is most surprising for us. And initially we thought, no, this cannot be right. And then we tried comparing it to Kubernetes top 10, didn't work. Okay, I only have 1 more minute. So this was another example of, the reason I call this out is because a lot of times we'll go into an incident and there would not be any logs. And not because it was not enabled, but also because we did not know there's a CNCF project running, which had its own logging. We didn't know what to look for those logs. We'll just look for, hey, give me the CloudWatch logs or your audit logs from AWS or Azure or whatever. So that was a bit of a learning we had to go through as an organization. This is just a simple example of what a detection could look like. And that was the last slide. I think I've got 1 more minute. I'm gonna stop, but essentially the whole point is I'm trying to bridge the gap between platform engineers and cloud security engineers so that we can actually have more awareness, and hopefully you can talk to your cloud security engineers and help them identify the top 3 things so they don't wake you up at 3 a.m. Hopefully no one has to do that, but that's it. Oh, any questions? Oh yeah, there's a question.
Thank you. Actually, one observation first, your guide on how to get started was looking more like, a quick start for the hackers rather than anything else. But my question is essentially in your Verizon reports,
Oh yeah.
you showed like this percentage of values of the hacks, and you did a touch base on GenAI and phishing attacks.
Yep.
But GenAI can be also used for like generic hacks because you actually can actually go through this quick start guide, and LLM can help with like a parsing out who's trying new stuff. So what is your like maybe personal opinion on how those numbers may change in the recent years with the rise of GenAI? Just particularly curious, do you think that hackers will be faster in adopting this than actually organizations that's supposed to protect their resources, or they will keep up?
I think the answer is yes to that. And I'll give you a simple reason. The reason for this is because we called the blue team, we have a lot more red tape. We kind of have to go through a process for, hey, can I install on this tool or can I go through this? I think that's the only reason, in spite of having all the access, the same information as everyone else out there, 99% of the time I found that we were behind. It's not because we didn't have the resources or we didn't have the time. It's usually like it's always behind the red tape. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think they've already spoken about the fact that I think someone reported 80% increase in attacks already in general, not specifically AI driven attacks, but essentially attacks have been increasing over time. I think compared to last year, it's 80% higher, but not specifically because of AI, but they don't know if it would be the case, specifically because the way AI stands at the moment, I can never make it get the same response back twice, which is once that is solved, I think we'll see a change. At the moment, what we're seeing is like, oh, it's unreliable, so I'll use it for my, especially for red team, they use it for the reporting. That hey, any reports that I have, any POC that I have to create for a vulnerability, like the example that I showed with the serverless action, they would just give an AI to just summarize the whole thing and do a walkthrough. But that's kind of where we are. We haven't gotten to a stage where people can start using do attacks as well yet. Hopefully that answers the question. Perfect. Any? Are we good? Oh yeah. Aren't you tired of how we are still getting incidents and not having enough budget to address? It's kind of like the red tape thing that I was talking about. It's either budget or someone just basically saying, unimportant case. Can we lower the risk somehow? Like figure out a way to make it medium from high? How many people have gone through the conversation? Like I've had so many conversations. Oh, there you go. So like security people know this. You raise a high, suddenly by the end of like the month, suddenly it's like a medium and then it goes into a low. And like, I'm pretty sure this was high when we first spoke about this. Somehow we made it medium or low. But anyway, it's a funny comment, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Round of applause, please. We are going to go to a break now. It's 7:45. Please come back here for 8 o'clock for the third speaker. If you are heading out now, please don't forget to return these lanyards.
No, thanks for your time. I appreciate the and you guys had cloud release this week. Yeah, sure. I think they have a few. But I just want to thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for
thank you for speaking. I think you guys waiting.
You're the magnet.
Oh, no.
But, oh, yeah, great. Hi, she.
I'm good. How are you?
You're nice to meet you. One of the share. Sure. I was very so sweet, very much stress. Oh yeah. Sometimes we're on receiving end. So when we say August,
When you say you went, where did you
We've got a.
yeah,
One's from some.
We noticed a lot of times that once down to AI,
Oh, yeah.
all over, and taking things like 9% bot traffic.
Oh, sure.
And addressing AI problems is part of the house solution. So we put out a blog post basically.
All right.
We see what you're doing.
Yeah.
We know what you do.
Yeah.
And the next day, our network suffered a massive decline.
And I emailed.
Holy shit.
Now, some might say that's a coincidence. I don't think so.
No.
I mean, fortunately, we're extra dealing with emails.
All the time, all fair.
I mean, that's insane, man. Like, I read it up, but yeah, that's just surprising. I don't know how often that sort of thing comes up in.
It definitely, so the increase of bot traffic definitely means an uprise to the 80%. Some of that, a lot of that traffic has been AI bots. But in terms of having a nation state come after you, that is definitely not that common though. I haven't seen that, but that's an interesting.
We consider that a boost to our reputation if we compete in China.
Yeah, I mean, because all the AI bots that I've heard of, they're all primarily like, I mean, Akamai and all what they're trying to figure out. Oh, okay, there's an increased traffic, and you got to figure out how to block that. But the flip side of having a nation state come after it, like that's the I think because I was talking to Goldman Sachs folks about this, and even JP Morgan Chase, and they didn't. So they obviously had the same thing that Harris Biden. Yes, so they definitely haven't seen. I think my understanding is, or at least I haven't specifically asked the question. I'll be curious now if they actually see nation state traffic after that. That would be. I mean, so was it just as simple as block and move on with your life?
Blocking AI crawler is straightforward. It's our block management, media pricing, classified fields. Blocking the default stack. I mean, we run our own website and applications, which is what we're trying to take down through our own global network, the automation proxy, which is very good at immediately.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you're hitching boxes. So exactly.
So we could,
I thought you were using it for boxes. No, we are. Yeah, fair.
The two you mentioned, checking out to
What was that? Oh, that's why maybe they didn't experience. They didn't even like talk about this. So because one of the guys that I shared the slides with, one of the was JP Morgan Chase for but they didn't bring up the insert. So I just assumed, oh, okay. So for them, you guys probably just like a few slides.
yeah, so I've read about it. So
that's awesome, man. That's a great story as well. Thank you.
Why don't you just
Thank you. Thank you for meeting as well. Hi,
as soon as
nice to meet you.
come back.
There you go. Yeah. What brings
So
you
because
to,
this was last minute edition, so
I mean, great luck for that. Yeah.
people will arrange their evening.
Oh.
positive
Pizza.
Oh, fair.
That's why everybody else
Finding
comes
it.
to.
Are you-
Hi,
Hey,
Cheryl.
nice to see you again.
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. I just wanted to say that so we'll
there
be
you go.
following up to try that.
It's really good.
How far in advance are you booked the classes?
Oh, thank you so much.
Sponsors,
Yeah, so.
I don't really have a maximum on meetups. On the most sponsored by meetup.
Right.
Usually it's only like one. I don't want like to be.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get on your schedule, yeah. I think I'm pretty certain we want to do a talk as well, so 2026, we'll aim for
If you
that.
want to do a, if you want to sponsor an event.
No, but I'll just
Right
talk
now.
to that.
Right, well then I'll check with our team who's going to be available.
You don't even see it.
Oh,
Oh, that's great job.
I'm in that halfway house, I'm just technical enough to cause trouble.
That's how that's exactly how I describe myself. Like I know just enough to cause trouble, but yeah, definitely.
But no.
Yeah,
Let me know
follow up.
when you can figure out.
Lucky you. Lucky you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, fair. I mean,
Question for him. Yeah. What do you think? He came in with his son, and I think they got us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's a
I think he's quite okay.
which has connections for AWS and cloud.
Yeah.
Spain-based company.
Thank you.
And
Sure,
it's
no.
also And now they're doing AI. for example.
Could you just put the mic?
They essentially
The Wi-Fi, you need somebody from just.
but what you find is a lot of them
Okay,
usually.
Yeah, that's
a lot
right,
of the
that's
cloud
right.
providers, depending on the
Yeah,
service
you have
line,
to,
some of them don't get into Kubernetes.
I mean, I think you need.
Oh, yeah,
someone
you have a
else to
Kubernetes
but
cluster.
then they.
But they like some of them would not even know.
I
I can't do it myself.
One would not even know, hey, by the way, your IAM role,
That's
but that's your pod.
It's a bit of a
That's
pain.
its
I,
own.
I have to do it every time because they only do 8
You do
hours.
come across depending on.
Oh, so
you're gonna
it's-
do
it's-
Power is
sorry,
primarily
sorry.
like a,
It's just, yeah,
people who are
it's-
doing renting or expenses.
Yeah.
A lot of them use
I
that
mean,
for
considering
like
it's
initial scan.
guest.
Do you really need
We
it?
used to use
No, no, no.
that before, but now they start doing.
Yeah, I know, it's a guest Wi-Fi.
This is
so they do
ridiculous.
really
Any cloud,
hard for
AWS, Azure, cloud,
use their
one
Wi-Fi.
for cloud portal, so.
Yeah, so
similar
really, like,
route.
Yeah,
But we do the good this.
Because we pass every year, it's like that.
Yeah.
But it's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, but this
still have
is, like, you get through
Yeah,
second one,
it's always-
and so hopefully, the first one, which is identity, but like, you can't stop people giving email,
Yeah.
phishing email,
Yeah.
like, how do you even, like, measure that, like, you can have all the phishing campaigns you want, but all it takes is one specific person to be having a bad day, hate my job, or take on a job description.
Kids are more than.
That's kind of what the reality comes down to. So instead of like, I mean, when I go
I
into
could
the
cut-
board, be like
Yeah,
complicated attack, like, the sophisticated stuff, none of that. It literally came down to people that are getting fished, and you can pick up from the internet.
That
One
social
little
media,
application on the internet,
don't-
and I'm like misconfigured. I'm like, really, it's like top 3,
I know.
like a whole top 10 list, but
I guess
mostly
we
doing
tend
that
to
kind of
manage that.
stuff. That's why I said.
Yeah, you do. It's part of having that same.
I know.
Such a meeting, I'm sure I'll see you out.
Yeah, happiness. Getting
Hi.
exposure.
On the community society.
Yeah, I don't feel responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, no,
Every
no,
now
Oh.
Well,
It's being,
Oh.
Yeah.
It's kind of-
the same here, same video.
it's fulfilling.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
It is that you have to work hard for.
Yes, exactly.
It's always.
Apparently, on the company's life,
We could talk about it.
most organizations
Yeah.
are really
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying people that do it.
Yeah, and I'm like, imagine you don't have work, so no one comes in.
Yeah.
I think your point
Yeah,
about.
I think we've got.
Oh, yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah, how are you?
We're using sustainable before, which is
How is
one of the most common.
everything's happened now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried to say. Oh, you then try and explain that. Yeah. I need all this stuff. For my applications.
Yeah. Yeah, how often are you using all of those applications at the
So
same
it
time?
tries to help, but it's quite a complex task. It's not just a thing of going, look at what missions you've used over the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And then it'll generate
Once
like,
it's
an IFR or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
fair.
so I can use that. I think it's because now there could be some anomalous behaviour that's gone on over the last 12 months, which means there's just genuinely, like we talked about team, and I said, well, what are you doing? Well, we haven't actually deployed this app. So therefore, all this missions they need haven't been executed.
There you go.
You
And I
know,
think with that also too,
so I said, in that case, I don't recommend you use this thing because it's probably fine, it's gonna be bad for you.
and you also find that
Yeah, so there are many things I can do.
Yeah.
It is.
Rather than
Yeah, to be honest, the biggest point is publishing parties about.
oh my god, yeah.
So you've got stuff.
I didn't mention that, but that's like the bigger one.
So, you know, you go back to the principles, you can't secure this, you know, they're.
Or who do I talk to?
The second criteria they have to do, what we've got is who actually is responsible for supporting that. Or
Yeah.
if you.
Are they doing your provision?
You might have, well, we have hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one
But
time.
even if you find the right account.
Yeah.
I
I think winning an Oscar is a bit.
Yeah, I think so.
If you're like a writer, they have this.
Yeah.
For patchy.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for
Winning
your.
a Nobel Prize is not.
Example.
You just like you just
I have some words I
have
have.
hundreds of them lying around.
People follow best practice advice, so that doesn't all this stuff.
Yeah, but that means that's harming your hardware sprawl across as well.
I mean, it's going to be a
And it's like
while.
because we had a similar situation, accident,
Yeah.
the owner was, and the CP was fed up with it, but I was fed up with it.
Nice.
And one day we just came to them
It's like
and
it's
came to them,
lining up nicely.
make an announcement on Slack saying, hey, we're starting off the application.
Turn it off.
It's wonderful, so, and no one seems to be owner for it, so we're gonna turn it off in exactly 1 month. Just letting you know.
That was quite generous.
Yeah, okay, maybe it's an internal application,
Yeah.
it wasn't like external one.
Yeah.
But turns out, no one said anything for it. Every week it's like, hey, 3 days, you're gonna do it, 4 days, you're gonna do it, switch it up. Yeah, so we, I mean,
Probably got that to say minus one.
no, no one showed up.
I know that.
So what we did was, we didn't shut down the app, we basically turned the traffic off.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 teams complaining about it,
Just
like,
disconnected.
literally, and then Slack started flooding with, hey,
Something's not working.
yeah, and I'm like, oh,
Now
I
we
guess
know.
you need the application now. I
Nobody-
wonder.
nobody knew why.
Yeah, because no PM wanted the responsibility of things being added to the backlog. And I'm like, well, but then that's what I was saying to the gentleman earlier. It's like, as much as AI, it's not gonna be like, we don't have the tool, we do have them. It's literally the red tape is basically what's stopping us from being as efficient as someone outside. So I think for us, we have to be like, every single time, it's not the right months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of way you're gonna lose half the time as well. And that's what we feel like keeps people awake in the middle. I was gonna get some water later. So you guys finish as well.
Yeah, it's Roy Howard. I think we might be connected.
Let's just type in.
Sorry, I was waiting. Yeah.
I know that is a more interesting activity to do. But
Oh, perfect. Well, let's go right
Still
to
people
the
coming in.
first. Catch you later.
I'll just hand it over to you. You kick off whenever you're ready.
All right, I use a PC, so it takes a while for it to boot up. Hi folks, my name is Hasib. I am a last minute entrant. I thought about this deck last night. I was up for 36 hours, so the deck sucks actually. But I'll share with you some thoughts around sort of developer self-service consumption. How do developers easily consume compute? And that's what we work on. I work at a company called Rafe. That's what we think about a lot in this company. And as we start talking about that topic, if it's okay with everybody, how many people here actually write code on a daily basis? All of us? For apps or infrastructure, how many write code for apps, actual applications? Any infrastructure people here? Yeah, all right. So let's say you wrote a piece of code. You want to test it. Sitting in a branch, you want to test it. What do you do? Anybody? Like, what is the process for you to get compute so you can test your code against the rest of the code in the company? What do you do? Okay, what does that take?
In our case, we have a scaled down environment. That's enough, and then we can test it cover.
That's pretty cool. Do other people have the same in your companies? That level of automation?
I have different approach. And my company would like to scale up for the catch system.
You scale up, they scale down.
Scale up for the catch system.
Got it.
Then
Got it.
would like to doing some development from the vendor from the gaming, and then to provide the feature with the login or just the gambling event.
So you work at Big Ten.
Not really pretend.
All right. So the question I'd asked the gentleman over there was, what does it take for you to get compute? Just I want compute to test something. What does it take? And it's fascinating how different answers are all over the world. Like as an example, the worst case scenario that I know of is a very large financial services company who has a platform engineering team that has written some Terraform, which they give to the developers and say, run it. And you'll have environments and good luck. If it breaks, file a ticket. The head of developer experience in that company, he told me at some point last year that about 20% of developers' time is wasted on infrastructure. This company has 5,000 people. So what's 20% of 5,000? 1,000. So 1,000 salaries, they go to zero. They waste 1,000 salaries because they don't have good automation. And this use case that I just described was why we started the company that I work at. I'm going to finally put up my, by the way, I was buying time so my computer would start and I would have my PowerPoint up and running. It is now. So here's what I find everybody believes they do in their companies as it relates to platform engineering. So what they believe they do is there's a lot of upfront thought put into things. We think about who are my customers in the company, who are the developers, what teams they belong to, what do they need, what are the similarities between them, what are the complexities I need to solve for. And I really think of a design upfront. Then I code it, and then I deliver essentially a button to my developers. Press this button, and you will have compute. In practice, actually, this happens. We don't do any of this stuff. We start writing code. And because of this approach, a lot of companies end up wasting your time, developers' time. You should not think about infrastructure. You should think about your code. Everything should be a button that you press, and you should just get compute. I find it fascinating that every time I talk about this, nobody disagrees, but it's something that continues to escape us as an industry. And I thought a lot about why that happens, and I don't have a good answer. I have theories. I don't have a good answer. But what I just said, by the way, do you agree with me that this is how things are versus how things should be in your companies? Do you have a theory as to why this happens? Why can't we do better? Like, what's getting in our way as an industry?
Because they don't know the infrastructure.
We don't know the infrastructure. Fair.
With the development.
Fair point. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
Have developers on the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So they can program better than.
So you're just saying that you're better at writing code than these other guys on the platform side. Can you put his picture on the screen so you know the live stream big people see it? No, you are the guy that plays pool.
I think it's a lack of standardization.
Standardization. What an amazing word. Okay. All right. I like it. I agree. By the way.
And I would probably say it's about incentivization. It is about incentives as well. Remember a few, or maybe a minute ago, you were talking about why do you think they come? Why do you think that the industry isn't the same? It doesn't seem. Look at the previous slide and this slide. Some of us, yes, exactly. That example. It's almost giving incentives to developers as well.
So you just want to get paid more money. Sure, that's a great incentive. Pay me more money, I'll fix my infrastructure problems for you. I agree with that idea. But yes, you are right. I'm just kidding, by the way. Yes, ma'am, you were saying. Tell people what Connor's law is. If you have 3 teams in your company, your code will behave like there are 3 teams in your company. If you have 5 teams in your company, the code will behave like there are 5 teams in your company. And we cannot escape this law. Happens every single time. Because we have a platform engineering team, we have platform engineering stuff. And then we have developers and there's developer stuff. That's never going to go away. And that's an excellent point. But my friend here, who I'm going to play pool with after this, said the word standardization. 100% agree. So in the land of Kubernetes, many companies believe that the problem to solve is let's build a cluster. And I guess we're done. It's not. It's not even close. But it is a fact that in many organizations, the platform engineering team provides, here's EKS or whatever, and then they stop, and then developers take it from there. And the reason why they do that is because they don't have the right automation. It's not their fault. It's a complicated problem, right? But exactly to the point, my friend, I keep calling you my friend. What is your name? Karen. So what Karen said was standardization is a gap, right? And what we found is that the only right way to approach this journey, once you have a cluster up and running, is to really think about these steps. What does standardization mean? Whether I deploy code in EKS or AKS or on-prem, the experience should be exactly the same. In fact, we do a demo a lot where I will show somebody two clusters and I will shoot Gretel into both of them and ask them, tell me which cloud it is. And they're both different, but tell me which one it is, and they contrast. It's exactly the same experience. Because when you have the right standardization, the experience is the same. The footprint of the clusters is the same. The blueprint is essentially is the same. And without that first step, we will never get to where we want to get to, at least where I want to get to. I want to press a button. I want to press a button. I want to get compute. Doesn't happen. No standardization. And once people talk about standardization, the next thing becomes, I want to centralize my actual platform engineering function. In most companies, there is a platform engineering team. They're sometimes called different things, but they're platform engineers. They're all doing the right things. But because of lack of time, the complexity of the problem, they solve some of the problem and they expect developers to solve the rest of the problem. And the problem with that approach is that there's no actual centralization. Compute should be delivered as a service. Compute should be delivered as a service, right? So if I'm a developer and I write, I don't know, Spring code, and my application uses React and MySQL, there should be a button that I can press and like cookie cutter, right? I should get an environment for somebody writing Spring for React with a MySQL backend. And it should happen again and again and again. And that, to me, is the definition of a platform that we deliver as a service. So the three questions that have been asked in the past, by the way, the first one, which most of you selected, I got that from ChatGPT. I found that to be a boring one, but I copied it. The third one, obviously, it was incorrect. But really, none of them were correct, in my opinion. The right answer for platform as a service is it depends. It's an economics answer, right? Because the way you write code is different from the way I write code. But somebody in our company needs to understand our needs and deliver to us a button that does for you what you need to do and does for me that I need to do. And that doesn't exist. And the company that I work at, my day job is I'm the CEO there, this is all we think about. How do we make developers' life easy? Now, we've been thinking about this problem for a long time, really long time. And we've convinced a lot of large companies that this is the right way to think about it. But about a year ago or whatever, 10 months ago, along came this thing called AI, GPUs, and a lot of different things that happened, particularly because of GPUs, because they're just so expensive. And if I may ask, people in this room here, are you guys using GPUs in your companies? Do you guys have GPUs deployed? Are you guys writing AI applications in your company? Have you heard of NVIDIA? Obviously, I'm kidding. You're writing AI applications, yes?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. What is it?
So it's mostly running on Databricks.
Okay.
So that would be just for model training and things as such.
Okay. Anybody else? Nobody else is doing AI here?
There are some in the blueprint stage for me, actually.
Okay.
We got that on the platform of
Interesting.
idea stage.
I mean, if you believe the news, it's like everybody's doing it. What's up here? And what's going on in this room? But yeah. Certainly there's a lot of newness to AI, so a lot of companies are slowly adopting it.
The thing is actually, what is the proper use case? That is where the challenge. Just to have an AI, it's no fun.
I think the most challenging part is the infrastructure of AI server. Yeah, because a lot of companies currently is at the DevOps teams, but I'm not quite sure about that. How to be good performance from the AI server between
Interesting.
the API request, something like that.
Yeah, everybody worries about that. It's a fair worry. Look, if you keep the developer self-service goal in mind as being the real purpose of a platform as a service, from a infrastructure, from a controls, from an automation perspective, all of the things in blue have to be true so you can do the things you want to do. This applies to AI. I was just kind of wondering if you guys use AI or not. This applies to AI. This applies to any application that you write. But the beauty of self-service, when you have the right platform, is that actually it's quite amazing how fast companies can move. It's actually quite amazing. In our company, we, depending on the day, we may upgrade production 40, 50 times a day. A very complex platform. If we don't have all the right controls in place so we can do self-service consumption, we cannot deliver the applications we want to deliver 40, 50 times a day. And it works really, really well. These numbers on the screen, these are real numbers. This is the performance improvement companies get when they actually have true self-service consumption. This is real. This is our customers telling us what kind of performance improvements they get when they have the right platform in place. This is the PaaS. When you have a PaaS in place, you would know it because you will move this fast like others are. It's actually quite amazing. And by the way, obviously, I love talking about this notion of a PaaS and what development self-service means, but if you do have interest in learning more about it, we'd love to show you a demo. It's very simple to do. I'm happy to do that anytime. If it's okay with you, I'll tell you what we do, not in the sense that I want to sell you something, I want to explain how we approach the problem. So company's called Rafe. The intent is that we sort of sit between infrastructure and apps that you may be consuming. All these apps on the screen, they are AI apps, purely because everybody wants to talk about AI these days. But it applies to anything. And we're trying to solve two problems. We're trying to solve an orchestration problem, a governance problem, so that when you ask for compute, you get it immediately. And we're trying to solve a consumption problem, which is when you ask for it, it's there, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem. And the result is, of course, there's a lot of features. I'm going to skip this. The result is that usually customers who implement this end up running a CSP, like an AWS-like experience on top of AWS. So as an example, let's say your company uses AWS or Azure or whatever, and you have a data center. Our company, people here in this room, do you guys use public cloud?
Yes.
Just want to make sure you guys are. Are you guys hybrid in your companies, or you guys are 100% public cloud? Hybrid. Okay. So the fun thing is, when I go to Amazon and I want to compute, it's called P for X large. When I do it on-prem, it's an entirely different experience, right? So that's bad. Because we agreed before that the definition of PaaS is the experience should be exactly the same everywhere. So one of the things we thought about a lot was, hey, even though a user is consuming compute on-prem and tomorrow they may consume it in Amazon, the experience should be exactly the same. So what if we could write SKUs? What if inside your company, you can have compute which is small, medium, large? But if it runs on Amazon or Azure or on-prem, it shouldn't matter. And then on top of that, what if I could say that I want an app called X, whatever, Data Robot or Spring or whatever. And when I deploy it, whether it's running on Amazon or on-prem, it shouldn't matter. That is a really, really hard problem to solve. It's a really, really, really hard problem to solve. It's taken us 7 years to solve this problem. Right now, it works reasonably well, but it's taken us 7 years to solve this problem. So when I meet companies like this one on the screen, who have such challenges because they run in more than one cloud, it's not surprising that their developers are spending a lot of time solving infrastructure problems. So we meet a lot of these companies, and our job is to help platform engineers deliver a PaaS so that you don't have to think about infrastructure. We do this consistently everywhere. This is a simple example. I have a really fun example. It's a company called NISA. They're GPU cloud. AI is important in this industry. They, in India, for Indian companies, deliver a self-service experience where a developer can go to a portal, and say, I want a GPU, and on that GPU, load up an inference endpoint use case. And I work at a company that does contact center work. So load up Whisper for me so I can do speech to text and tie that into my application use case. And I want it now. And then a couple of minutes later, you can get it. Or I am building an application for a security company, and I want to write an application that recognizes which car is which. Is it a car? Is it a truck? Which model? Can do that. That's a use case. That's a real use case for companies, right? 5 minutes or whatever, a few minutes, you get that application. So there are companies out there who are building these applications on the backs of platforms as a service because the first problem, which is easy consumption of computers, is solved. In your companies, when you engage with your platform engineering peers or your leadership, forever we have sort of made the assumption that these things are impossible to solve. So we just assume that it's not possible, so we just kind of deal with whatever is given to us. That's not the case anymore. There are solutions out there that can deliver true PaaS-like experiences, so you can focus on applications and nothing else. To the point you had made earlier, right? Only focus on applications, nothing else. My recommendation to you, and if there's one thing you kind of take away from this conversation, other than the fact that my PC takes 5 minutes to load up, is everybody should be operating with a platform as a service inside the company. Doesn't matter where your compute is. Everybody should have a PaaS. You should have one too. You should ask for it. You should ask for it. Your platform engineering team should be able to deliver it to you. There are many options. We are one option. There are many options in the market. But when you have that in place, it's actually quite magical, right? So the numbers I was showing before, they're actually it's unbelievable how much faster people go, right? And then you can deliver things faster, experiment faster, go faster. This is what everybody needs. This is when companies make real money. And I mean, this is where developers shine. And we all talk about this 10x engineer, right? You know what the 10x engineers have? You know the secret behind 10x engineers? Automation. Excellent infrastructure. Excellent. Everybody talks about how, oh yeah, Instagram got acquired and they're like 14 people. Yeah, but they're excellent automation. That's why they could move so fast. When you have it, you would be a 10x engineer as well if you're not already. Ask for it. It's going to change your life. It did for me, for sure. Is it okay if I show you a quick demo of a self-serve PaaS experience? So the nice thing about a multi-tenant product is that it runs many personas. The bad thing is that it takes me a long time to get there because I got to click a lot. So we talked about this user who writes Spring code, yeah? If I write actual Spring code, I wasn't kidding, that's an actual use case. React, MySQL, whatever use case, right? For me to get compute in my company, all I gotta do is identify where my code is. And that's it. Which repo, which branch, which directory, here's my token. Everything else is magic. A Kubernetes cluster will magically appear. It will be sort of divvied up with namespaces. Each namespace will have the right limits underneath it. Your pods will get wrapped with a Kata container with the micro VMs for Kata. Inside the namespace, there'll be a vCluster running, so you have a full cluster. You will get a kubeconfig, which is unique to you. The password for the database will get parked automatically in Secrets Manager. Don't have to do anything. Magic. You just write your code. And at the end of this, the screen will say, here's the endpoint URL, test your application. 2 or 3 minutes. That's when that's the level of automation we have, we write code faster. Good for the company, good for us. Right? But this is where all of us should be. And it's a shame that in 2025 we're not here. We should have been here 10 years ago, but whatever. We are here now. Right? So again, in your companies, when the platform engineers kind of push back and say, Yeah, we have a roadmap to deliver Terraform to you in 6 months. Yeah, that's great. This is what I want. Because it's possible. And the companies do it again. I said this before, I'll say it again. This is where 10x engineers come from. It's not because they're smarter, it's just they have better automation. It's like they talk about like the American soldiers, right? I mean, are they the best in the world? They have the best gear. That's why the best in the world. They have the best gear. You should have the best gear. You should have products like this, and then you'll go much faster. This kind of demo, I'll stop here, but I can spend a lot of time after this, show you a bunch of these kinds of demos of all kinds of different use cases, like launching inference endpoints as a service. This is a simple example, but complex examples such as I want 20 servers to do training. 20 minutes, you should have it. Yeah. Any questions to me about that? I have an agenda that I talk about all the time, so I keep repeating these messages, but I have something to say. Yes, sir. Please.
It's also work on private cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know what the percentage is, but probably 50% of our customers have hybrid environments. So in fact, in the AI world, here's a big use case that perhaps depending on the size of the company, you may be experiencing or your companies may be experiencing, which is large enterprises, they go out and buy GPUs, as an example, and then they deploy them in a data center. And they want the developers to use it. But the problem is that developers used to Bedrock in AWS or whatever, Vertex AI, whatever, right? I want the same experience as Bedrock or SageMaker, but in my data center. Yeah, no problem. Similarly, you can have an experience where, I hope I have it here. Yeah, there you go. I just want to launch Rails service, which is, by the way, are you familiar with Kubernetes as an example? You can run that in your data center. Or I just want a notebook. Or I just want VLLM for inferencing. I'm doing image classification. Specific. Each of these is an experience that can be delivered based on the needs of the developer. So if your use case is image classification, don't worry about the inferencing engine, where it runs, don't worry about it. Where's your data? The only thing you should care about is, where are my images? Everything else should be magic for you. We don't sell to developers, just to be clear. Our customers are the platform engineers, right? Because they have to deliver the service to you. So my customer is the guy who's solving your problems. Because you should not think about this problem. This is not your problem. You should just consume it. You should just press a button, right? So yeah, the phrase I just said, I say this 100 times a day. Press a button. Your experience should be, I press a button, magic happens. And yeah, you should ask for that. Ask your infrastructure leaders, your whatever, platform engineering leaders, ask them for that. On-prem or on the cloud, doesn't matter. Because it is possible. Any other questions on that point, sir? Yeah? Yes, sir.
What time of the budgets and all that kind of stuff. Which is really what I see. I saw is developers don't get stuff because it's expensive.
So the question is, developers don't get stuff because it's expensive. The fun thing about that thought process is that
not my decision.
Sorry?
Not my decision.
Not what?
Not my decision.
Yeah, totally. But let's think about that for a minute together, right? Somebody makes a statement in a company, hey, Mr. Developer, you can't have these fun things so that you can write better code because we don't have any money. But the developers are the one who make money for the company. If you don't write code, how is the company going to make any money? Yeah. So actually, leaders who are thoughtful don't approach the problem that way. They first approach the problem as, what is the right answer for my developers? What is the best experience for them? And then they focus on, can I reduce my costs? When you have the right platform in place, one side effect of that, you actually save money. You know why you save money? Because everything is standardized. And when everything is standardized, there's no wastage. It's repetitive. It's cookie cutter. Isn't that amazing? You get what you want and you save money. Yeah, you get it.
Well, the other thing is developers have a project, what they're working on, and they, let's say, need a Kubernetes cluster or something. Cluster gets provisioned, and then it runs for ages, and they just deploy new versions of the application automatically. There's nothing, I mean, provisioning new resources is a one-time cost.
So here's a fun example of what you just said. I'll just use vCluster as an example. So what if there was a control in place where I can write, I'm using the UI, nobody uses UI, so these things, just to be clear. I write a hook where I destroy this cluster called whatever after 360 hours. So you get what you want, and let's say you forget to turn it off. It's okay, it's gonna go away. Don't worry, save money. There are lots and lots of ways to do this. This is what I do all day long, right? This is my job, right? I think that we have to get away from what I started with before, right? We just start writing code. That's the problem. We don't think. This is not a developer problem. When I say we, in this case, I don't mean the developers. I mean people like me who think about infrastructure all day long. I don't write application code. I haven't done that in a long time. I'm an infrastructure guy. We start writing code. We don't think in terms of user stories. So what I recommend to my customers is step back from the computer and Terraform or OpenTofu. Go figure out from your developers, what do they need? Where are you wasting money today? Usually the wastage is people keep running stuff and they don't turn it off. So you say waste money. Okay, all right. Let's understand that together. If it's a Friday evening, maybe we should just turn things off. It can be automated. There's nothing special. So easy. Every developer, on average, will write code for what, 6 hours at a time, and then we get tired, right? It's fine. Okay, maybe after 6 hours, there should be a hook that says, hey, I'm going to turn it off unless you tell me no. So easy. Save money. Every single time you can save money. Standardization breeds savings. Everybody wins. But standardization gives you the better experience that you're looking for. And then nobody will tell you that, man, hey, look, man, we don't have budget. That's a silly notion. That's a middle management response. We don't have budget. Sorry for middle management. No. Everybody saves money. Sorry, did I go way over?
We are just about at time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, just if I may just call this one thing out. Think about automation differently. We think about automation in all the wrong ways in our industry. I don't think we understand what automation can do. Be a 10x engineer. Ask for a pass. I'll stop here.
All right, that concludes our evening. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to Cloud Native London tonight. We'll be back again on the first Wednesday of each month. So we'll see you again next month. Don't forget to return these lanyards on your way out. And if you would like to join us at the pub, we will be going to the Conductor, which is just out the front door, straight in front of you on the left. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, very nice to meet you.
Yeah, okay. I have to down, but the challenge I think as well as what